How old were you when you realized that music was the only way to relieve the existential nightmare that is reality? For me, it was when I first listened to Sonic Youth. Only those atonal guitars blasting rancid rhythms under filthy lyrics reflected the disgust I had for reality at that point in my life. Each of the first 5 albums reflects a stage of growing up that I feel like we all went through, so I'm going to be making a series of 5 videos talking about my experiences with them. This is part 1 of a Sonic Guide to Youth on their debut album, Confusion is Sex and Kill Your Idols. This album is the sonic form of the first realization that most people's lives are either short, terrible, or both. That there is a class of people making the world terrible for their own gain, and crucially little any individual can do to stop it without risking everything. That your entire existence revolves around being a giving part of a system that you didn't sign up for that commits things you would never condone. This album is a furious rebuke of society and its values. It begins with "She's in a bad mood," stuck in a mire of repetitive metallic guitar tone that doesn't know who to trust or what to believe. I believe all her lies, but I can't fall for it. This song comes right out of the gates with the titular Confusion. I remember listening to this song for the first time as I was walking home from school and being frustrated at not understanding it at all. Little did I know that the song was designed not to fit into any of the arbitrary categories I had in my head at that point. Trying to explain what this song means is like trying to put birdsong into words. Then the album introduces the titular Sex as we head into Protect Me You, a desperate plea for protection from the sexually charged and morally bankrupt society that teens are unpreparedly thrust into when they reach high school. The subject grows from being the subject of social and perhaps sexual ravagement to complete confusion, to the ennui of seeing no value in anything, to eventually trusting the demonic voices in their head to protect them, though now from the guilt of the evils that society has forced them to commit. When one is victimized by a bilateral system, they also become the perpetrator. This song began a tradition where Kim Gordon sings at least one song that tackles social manipulation through and for sex on each of the rest of their albums, presumably until the end of time. Then we have Freezer Burn / I Wanna Be Your Dog. This song is the musical equivalent of a jump scare in a slasher movie. Just when you thought you were safe from the creepy twangs of the last song, snuggled tightly in several layers of feedback, you're suddenly thrust into a roughly recorded and abrasively performed demo tape of the Stooges cover. They take the 60s social upheaval and sexual liberation of the Stooges and twist it into a grotesquely static reflection, much like pop culture co-opted the civil rights movement, and it became an empty, monetized simulacrum of change. Shaking Hell is a further intense glimpse into the scary world of high school sex and sexuality. It explores the dehumanization that comes from the insane pressure that weighs on sex during these formative years. I'll take off your dress, I'll shake off your flesh, and the strict doctrine and classification that teenagers make up for themselves in an attempt to understand it. She's finally discovered she's a "he told her so." Teenagers occupy a liminal zone in which they've learned how to coerce emotional responses but don't understand the consequences of them. Inhuman continues these themes of detachment from the concept of humanity in a complete rejection of the mind and body from the person themselves. My body is a pastime. My mind is a simple joy. I remember waking up many mornings in high school, looking at my face in the mirror and wondering what the creature was that was staring back at me, why I had so much acne, and what was the entity asking these questions. Then we have The World Looks Red, which takes our nihilistic perspective from the internal to the external. To be honest, I don't understand all of this song, but I could tell that it's a complete rejection of society and everything it stands for. Push it away, the world looks red. People with fish eyes, the ground sucks. A certain someone may have belted these lines out in the shower countless times in a cry for help that was met only with shushes. There's nothing anyone can do about the ground itself sucking. The immovable fact buried my mind. The blatant absurdism of some of the lyrics in this song, like "walk on my fingertips displacing the fog" and "an ocean of insects move like a sheet," create vivid imagery at the expense of the cohesion of the song, which I interpret as a statement of the unimportant and evanescent nature of traditional narrative values. This, and also the rejection of everything else, is a key phase in the development of every teenager from childlike innocence to a mature sense of capitulatory obedience. Actually, I just looked it up. And this song was written by Michael Gerard, you know, the guy with the cowboy hat from Swans. Maybe that's why it makes no sense. Confusion is Next, the song that this album is named after, sort of, is a manifesto that outlines the future of society from the perspective of an anarchist wet dream. It begins by listing the various phases the world will go through on its way to truth. Chaos is the future, and beyond it is freedom. Confusion is next, and next after that is the truth. Here they indulge every rebellious youngster's deepest urges and advocate for absolute lawlessness, arguing that by placing the burden of morality on the self and not the government, the truth of ethics will reveal itself. They urge society to reevaluate its priorities. You've got to cultivate on what you need to need, and chastise people for lying, which in this context is following the law, as in lying to the lawless creature within you. Stick your fingers in your mouth, squeeze your tongue and wrench it out. Look, I'll be honest, I got no idea what sonic tooth means, and I sung it sonic truth for months, but I realized that the fact that it doesn't make sense is the rebellion. Then, just when you thought the song was winding down, it comes back harder and faster, repeating its message with an even more frustrated vigor. I'm just theorizing, but I think this song may take some inspiration from Space Age Couple by Captain Beefheart and his Magic Band. This song from 1970 is also a challenge to the youth of the world to take responsibility, is also built around repeated couplets, and also has a fast section at the end. But the weirdest part of all, also uses the word cultivate. Making the nature scene is a clear call for an animalistic, might makes right worldview. This is the most straightforward song on the album, both in its lyricism and its instrumentation. The pounding bass line reminds you at the end of every bar just how doomed you are. The lyrics opened my 14-year-old eyes to just how futile the idea of society and cooperation is in the real world. The nature of reality is selection, tools of critical intervention. Fragmentation is the rule, unity is not taught in schools. The last line seemed especially apt for the isolating effects of high school cliques, and the seemingly arbitrary judgment that formed them. Then there's Leah's Free, a well-needed break from the intensity of the last 8 songs. The song's eponymous freedom is from traditional song structure, as this track is made out of a series of tape loops with no lyrics and a very relaxed, curious tone. Sonic Youth's instrumental character heavily relies on their unconventional guitar tunings and voicings, which are on full showcase here, such that a teenage fan might assume that this track is made with a digital percussion set. A stupid teenage fan. The YouTube playlist through which I listened to this album also included the bonus songs from the Kill Your Idols EP, even though they were only added in the 1995 reissue, so thank you to the person who made that for ensuring that I heard these 3 essential tracks. This album would not be the same without them. Kill Your Idols takes the artistic advice of Kill Your Darlings and completely turns it around. Rather than submitting to accessibility and removing the things from our art that we love that others might not, we should instead kill our idols and not let any critic or fan tell us what should be included in our art. I don't know why you want to press Chris Gow. Let that shit die. Find out the new goal. This song's thesis seems to be rejection of the traditional interpretation of authorial intent in favor of uncensored expression in sonic form. Kill your idols, sonic death. It's okay though, Sonic Youth and Chris Gow, they're friends now. Brother James seems to be a battle between the utility of drugs and musical inspiration and the resistance of dependence on them. The introduction throws you violently into a world where an altered state of consciousness is the norm, and sobriety is a distinct poverty in worldview. The lyrics detail the similarity between drugs and religious experience. Follow now, or you'll be damned. Let's go to the other side. For a long time I thought the next line was Great Balls of Dignity, which sounds like drugs, but apparently it's Great Father Give Me the Keys, which sounds a bit more like something you'd chant in a cult circle. I still maintain the song's about drugs though. I don't need them anymore, somebody knocking at my door. That sounds like a struggle with addiction to me. Early American is Sonic Youth's first venture into tackling colonialism. The song recontextualizes the American symbol of the eagle, typically an emblem of freedom, as a savage bird, in your face, in your land. It expresses the seeming ubiquity and cancerously ever-expanding nature of American culture. Don't bother to leave, there's no room outside. This also ties back to anarchy. and the futility of attempting to escape the state and actualize freedom in the dominated modern world, even in countries who pride themselves on liberty and freedom. This is just the beginning of our journey. Sonic Youth continue to tackle colonialism, exploitation, and the insidious underbelly to American culture in their next album, Bad Moon Rising, which I'll cover in my next episode of A Sonic Guide to Youth.